So this video,
Okay.
he's talking to a woman, I can't remember her name for the life of me, smart lady, talking to Jordan Peterson about John Money and where this whole trans ideology, crazy transitioning children and doing weird fucked up stuff comes from.
He had his theory, and he didn't have any way of proving it until this family showed up at his doorstep. And they had a horrific tragedy in their family, which is that they gave birth to twin boys and they had phimosis. So the doctors recommended circumcision for the boys. And they went in when they were 8 months old for circumcision. The first boy to go in for the circumcision was Bruce. There was a malfunction of the equipment. The settings were incorrect and the entire penis was burnt. They were watching television and John Money happened to be on there. So they contacted Dr. Money and they made an appointment and took the twins down to Baltimore and went down there. And John Money says, well, we have an answer for you because male and female is actually not related to chromosomes. We can take little Bruce and we're going to remove his testicles. We're going to fashion, some sort of elementary sort of female genitalia. You're going to give him a girl's name and you're going to put him in pink dresses and give him dolls and raise him as a girl. And you are never, ever to tell him that this was truly what happened after he was born. Never tell him. His concept was that being male and female is completely separate from biology. The Reamers went home. Well, he had his surgery. They named Bruce Brenda. They put him in all the girls' clothing and they gave him dolls and they did all the thing. Dr. Money started to follow the twins. Every year they would come down for a visit. Dr. Money would take the twins without the parents into his office and spend time with the twins. So this went on for years, and Dr. Money began to report on his study that became a famous landmark study, and he was claiming that Joan was doing great. We didn't find out what really happened with the twins until decades later. So in 1998, we discovered he just blew the cover of this whole thing was a hoax. His name was now David. Brenda had become David, and he was not only a man, but he was married to a woman, and he had adopted 3 stepchildren, and he worked as a janitor in a slaughterhouse. What happened is that during all those years, he was not happy with his dresses and with his dolls. He wanted to go play with his brother's toys. He wanted to pee standing up. He wanted to, he was rough. And he was a miserable child, and the family was miserable. And on top of everything, when the family was going back for those yearly visits to Johns Hopkins with Dr. Money was sexually abusing those twins.
Okay, how?
He was forcing them to undress and to mimic sexual intercourse. The point came, why did they stop going down to Johns Hopkins? The boys, they refused to go back to see Dr. Money, and the parents couldn't understand why.
David Reimer committed suicide eventually, didn't he?
Yeah. He committed suicide, and his twin brother died of an opiate overdose.
My parents didn't know a lot that was going on, and if they would have known, it never would have happened. By me not saying anything, the medical community was under the impression that my case was a success story. And I was shocked when I heard that people thought that my case was a success story.
This experiment couldn't possibly have gone more cataclysmically wrong than it did, right? Not only was what Money was saying was not true in the technical scientific sense, it was an anti-truth, and he falsified the data, and it culminated in the death of 2 people, the demolition of a family, and the perversion of an entire culture.
See, the problem with the whole transing kids thing is that there's no long-term studies on it. Aside from that study, which was a false study, it was completely fucked up, and it was a failure.
There's no study to be had with one isolated person.
It was a molestation. It was not a study, I would say.
If you're doing a study, you have a placebo, and then you have an actual study group. The brother that didn't lose his penis is not a placebo. It's them trying to fix something they did, and be like, well, it doesn't matter, right? It's the whole argument of nature versus nurture. That's what this entire thing was, is that girls aren't girls because it's their nature. Girls are girls because they're nurtured into being girls. And boys are boys because they're nurtured into being boys. But that's not true. I didn't come out walking like a dyke. I walked like a chick. Just like this kid was walking around like a little boy, running around trying to be crazy because that's what little boys do. You know there's so many differences between boys and girls when they're kids? You ever hear boys are nightmares when they're kids, girls are nightmares when they're teenagers? It's fucking true. It's nothing about nature. It's nothing about nurturing them. It's the nature of their brains. Boys get all spastic when they're kids. Girls get all troublesome when they're teenagers. Mm-hmm. This is just the facts. This has been known for hundreds of years.
There's no long-term studies on it. So when people, especially, I hear this a lot from women when they're talking about puberty blockers for kids or transitioning children or save trans kids, there's no such thing as a trans kid.
If you can't purchase the items, if you can't legally have sexual interactions, if you're in that kind of situation, you should not have anything altered or fucked with when it comes to your genitals and your sexual identity. That has nothing to do with the people around you. You do it on your own time. That's how everyone else in the world has done it. When you are ready, you slowly learn your own body, and then you get interested in the person, you learn more with that other person. It's not like you sit there and you're forced into knowing what sex is, but they're doing that these days, and that's why less and less people are having sex. There's no discovery. There's no, oh, this is what I like. It's, oh, I'm supposed to like this. I'm supposed to do that. I'm supposed to do this.
Don't accept who you are. Change who you are so other people accept you. What happened? Now you're forcing people to accept you who don't even believe in your ideology. It's like being a Christian and trying to force everyone else to say amen or like, I love Jesus when they don't believe in that shit.
Overexposure.
Overexposure to what?
All of it. That's where I'm at.
I think that if there's no long-term studies on doing it to children, then maybe we shouldn't be doing it to children, especially if they don't know what the fuck is going on and you, as an adult, don't have like a half a clue of what is going on.
Specifically, medically speaking, I actually did a medical study when I was younger, because there was a medication that was approved for adults, but not for children, because they can't do that. They have to test on children. And so I signed up for that study fully knowing that it could be negative, but et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
I was a teenager when I did that, and at least I had sound mind to say, hey, yeah, I want to do this to my parents. These kids don't even know any better.
And also, these kids don't know that they are the experiment.
They're not studies. This is just what they're telling. It's not a study, it's a prescription, and there's a big difference. With a study, I knew the risks going into it. With medication from the doctor, you assume it's safe.
I know. What I'm saying is the kids who are being trans today, they are the experiment. They are the ones being experimented on. So the studies will be after, like, decades after these children who have been trans. We don't know until decades later to see how it's going to work out.
A lot of them will probably end up coming like that kid did.
They probably will, and they're always screaming trans genocide and all this shit. And
They're causing their own genocide.
but you're right. They are causing their own genocide because they're sterilizing them as children, which means that they can't procreate. So you're getting rid of any trans adult to have a child. So you're getting rid of trans parents.
Let's be transparent here.
They're eradicating themselves on behalf of their rights.
They're tearing themselves down as they're trying to build themselves up.
Yeah. Why do they care so much about children and their sexuality and their sexual organs? I have a big problem with that. That's very, very strange. When adults are like, trans children, and it's like, but they can't consent. So why are you trying to push for children to consent when they can't? That's really creeper vibes. Like,
there's
I'm
this
getting
odd
creep vibes.
No, that's the thing is the whole sensitivity parenting, no spanking. It's you sit there and you tell children, well, what do you want to do? It's not you have to eat your vegetables. It's, oh, if you don't want to eat your vegetables, you don't have to. It's constantly catering to this idea that kids know what's best for them when kids don't know what's best for them. If a kid could have it their way, they'd have pizza and mac and cheese and ice cream every day for every single meal, play video games all day.
Would never
and sit
drink any
around.
water and die of dehydration.
If kids had it their way, that's how it would be. That's why they need parents. They need guides. They need people who are going to be like, just wait. This is what's good for you. And if you don't feel that way, then you don't feel that way. We'll figure it out. But, like, these are children.
Yeah, you can dress however you want to dress as a child, but when you start fucking with your hormones and shit like that, and you hear people saying it's reversible, well, can you name the decades of studies where that shows that this is fully reversible? Because, like, I remember watching something where they were saying that not even the snip for the guys in their testes, that a lot of time that's not even reversible.
Vasectomy?
Yeah. It's not fully reversible.
Well, yeah. Well, once a woman gets her tubes tied, she's done.
Yeah.
So.
But a child can make that decision, right? They can make that decision because they've lived a full life and have had the experiences to know exactly what they want, and their brains are fully developed. Right?
They understand that they're never going to sexually mature and that their entire adult life will be nothing but asexuality. And even if they want to be attracted to someone, they're going to have to work really, really hard and still not get anywhere.
Have you ever heard of Gypsy Rose? Her mom was a Munchausen by proxy mommy.
They're going to end up like that. Let me just say.
The parents. Like and subscribe.
And help.